Welcome to the Cannabis Innovators Show. My name is Michelle Holliday. At Portfolio Wealth Global, we focus on the marijuana legalization process as a main investment theme over the coming years, as this illicit market turns into a legal one. As this happens, the already proven and large marijuana demand becomes viable, regulated, taxable, and business-oriented. It is also a window of opportunity for investors to participate in the earliest stages of this process and turn into seed investors, something that can never be done a few years from now when this process will already be mature. Therefore, in these shows, we will feature experts from this sector who will provide us with up-to-date insight into what is happening now. Today, our guest is Randy Shipley, president of the Marijuana International Corporation, with over 30 years of sales and executive experience in developing early-stage companies funded by venture capital. As corporate officer in charge of sales and development for Carrier Access, Mr. Shipley grew the revenues from below $5 million per quarter to over $40 million per quarter in less than 2 years, ultimately achieving a market cap on the NASDAQ of over $2 billion. Randy, we are so happy to welcome you to the Cannabis Innovators Show. How are you today?
I'm good. It's great to be here and talking.
Why are you a marijuana proponent? I know that there is a connection as to how you personally became so passionate about cannabis.
Yeah, my wife and son are both medical patients. My wife had cancer 11 years ago, and we replaced Ambien and anxiety pills with, she basically smokes marijuana at night to sleep. She uses it 15 minutes before. My son has major bowel disorders and digestive disorders. He's a professor, so very highly thought of and stuff, but he found that it was the best way for him to regulate his nausea issues.
So you came out of the corporate world.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when my old friends see, I actually was an officer with Carrier Access Corp., which was the fastest growing stock on the NASDAQ in 1998. And came out of the telecom industry, had, very successful executive career there, worked with a lot of top venture capital companies. And, in fact, I was working in venture capital when I got a call that my wife had cancer. I just walked in and quit the next day. And then as my life started to change and I saw, what was going on with it, I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to kind of jump back into, I'd been through the telecom wave, I'd been through the internet wave, I'd been through the cell phones and everything else, and I'm like, this is just the next great industry in the United States. So it was really from seeing what it could do for people with my kind of capitalist pig hat on, and saying this is a great place to come and learn and be an investor and be a leader in a new industry.
Wonderful. Can you describe the opportunity to get involved in this industry, the various occupations for people seeking a career inside of it?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. What a lot of people don't realize is that almost every career, everything that you do relates to this industry and other industries. There's technology, there's IT, there's things with cultivation, but there's sales, there's marketing, there's operations. All of the different functions that you see in normal business go on in cannabis. So everybody can get into the industry. It kind of depends upon what they want to look at, whether they want to look at what we call touching the plant, which means that you cultivate or you extract, or you're in the dispensary business, or you're in ancillary businesses. Some of by far the most successful businesses currently that have grown the biggest that can scale are actually ancillary and tech businesses, software, point-of-sale systems, ERP systems, operations. Very interesting, this whole industry, how it will grow.
Interesting. Wow. Now, as an investor, where do you see the gains coming from, and how early are we at this point in time?
We're still very early. There's, cannabis is really only recreational legal in, a few states, mostly West California, Colorado, Washington. California still hasn't even barely launched. They're medical and they're huge, but you have states that are coming on board like Massachusetts, Maine, and Nevada in the last election. But the adult use side of this, I see it as, we're currently maybe at a $6 or $7 billion legal market, depending who's looking at it and whose numbers you're using. And I see this industry growing to, potentially $50 to $70 billion once they legalize adult use across the country. And I think that's just a question of when that happens. I don't think it's an if anymore.
Please touch on the public trading stocks in cannabis just a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. When Colorado went recreational as the first state, there was a lot of companies that all of a sudden were penny stocks that had been mining stocks or something else, and all of a sudden we're marijuana stocks, and they, would buy anything to do that touched the industry, whether it was a nutrient company or a hydroponics store or delivery of CO2. CO2 is used for growing. And whether the company was losing money or not, they did it so that they could state they were in the industry. And there was a bubble that happened in right away that the marijuana stocks just went crazy. I mean, they were up 700% and 800%. And so people started buying in there and trading into them. And they soon came back to the level of where they belonged, which is their penny stocks, and most of them do not have sound fundamentals. That said, we're starting to see some that are now. So if you look carefully, there's some of the companies are on the Canadian exchanges. The first company ever just went on the New York Stock Exchange as a REIT. And that's a great place to be because real estate in cannabis and the people that own real estate and lease to cannabis operators actually get higher rents, better returns, and now you have an asset backing your investment. So there are some good companies there, but it takes a lot of homework to figure out, do they really have money? Do they really have a business? Do they really have a management team?
What's the latest developments on the federal level?
Obviously, Jeff Sessions says that he's going to enforce the federal law. There's a lot of talk. We actually had Dana Rohrabacher speaking in San Diego. Dana is a Republican senator, Republican House. He's on the Congressional Cannabis Committee. He takes cannabis for his arthritis, and he's a Republican. So, it kind of crosses over. There's a lot of thought in that Donald Trump has said before. He says a lot of things and goes back on a lot of things, but that's a lot of politicians, I think, is that he's not against medical use of marijuana. So it's going to be very difficult to see the federal government actually go up against states where the states have now made it legal. And when you start to look at the whole political scene, does the Republican GOP party want to go after states like Michigan, where medical is legal and they say recreational will become legal? Michigan, so that you're aware, has the second highest number of medical patients in the country outside California.
Oh, wow.
Pennsylvania's just started their cannabis medical. Florida, which is a big state, just approved medical cannabis by a huge margin. I think it was like 72% of the people approved it. So does the federal government or any party really want to go after states' rights? And when you think of the GOP, one of their biggest platform pieces is states' rights. So where that all plays out, nobody can know for certain, but it's kind of the belief that a little bit of it is just posturing. Still no bust going on. There's still, there's so many things that they need to deal with. Hopefully that they'll leave the states alone and states' rights will prevail.
What has already been accomplished on a state-by-state breakdown, at least nationwide, in terms of job creation, taxes, reduced crime rates, etc.? How has the legalization so far been benefiting the advantages to the states?
So there's a lot of the states that have approved and are now just getting ready to collect taxes, where you can see the most, if you do the research, where there's the most evidence would be Washington and Colorado. Colorado was first, Washington was second. And you see reduced crime rates. You see people, instead of people paying taxes, it's not just the sales taxes. The sales taxes in Colorado were huge. I think $130 million or something last year. In fact, they actually gave a rebate because the state had a law that if the state collected excess taxes, they have to do a rebate to all all the people in the state that paid taxes. So they actually gave a rebate. They balanced their budget. Real estate, because of the use of warehouses and things for growing, and commercial real estate has gone up. Their unemployment rates are at all-time lows. And just from personally knowing, my nephew is a public defender in Colorado, and he says the courts have just gotten so cleaned up. So the cost of running the courts, because they're no longer bringing in and running through the court systems marijuana or anything like that. And at the same time, they say that kids are using it less because it's harder for them to get when it's not licensed and regulated. Think about it. A liquor store doesn't want to lose their license by selling to somebody underage. People come in and test them all the time. That's what happens in a dispensary as well. And if a dispensary owner is making money, he doesn't want to sell to somebody underage. So it actually makes it a little bit harder for them to get it. But like anything, I think I was 17 or 16 when I first went into a bar. The drinking age was 18, and I got in. Youth will get into that kind of stuff. But I think the usage is definitely reduced, and the studies are showing that as well. And Governor of Colorado has now come out and said, while he was against it when it first happened, he's definitely a proponent for doing it now.
Wow. What are you personally doing to make your presence felt in the industry? And please explain to us, what is the Marijuana International Corporation?
So we go by MJIC. If you go to our site, it's mjic.com. It started really to become a mutual fund where people could invest in cannabis companies, but they quickly found that what was going on with the liquidity and the public stocks, that wasn't a good model. Then they were going to become an investment company. And MGIC actually is a kind of a holding company. We have investments in 15 different companies, everything from Stink Sack, which is Quark Distribution, to Anti-Dolores Cookies, which is a group out in California, to dispensaries in California. So we do have investments in the industry, but I had started not with MJIC. They bought my company and a partner that I had to get into an operations business. And today MJIC is a compliance group in California, so they do compliance to teach people how to legally operate for-profit businesses. And we do the marijuana business shows, which are expos and training on how to do that. So we are now an operations company focusing on California with a goal to actually be a legal distributor in California. We actually have distribution licenses that have been approved by communities in California, and then we'll spread that across the country. So we basically help companies get started, we help them market, and we help them distribute their products.
How did the Cannabis Business Expo begin?
Crazy idea with myself and a few friends that I actually had a business, still have it, that builds crowdfunding portals. And I'd Googled and saw nobody was doing crowdfunding in cannabis, so we started that, and we did a show called the Marijuana Investor Summit, and none of the exhibitors wanted to come because they all said, well, we don't need money. And I said, so we'll just change it to the Marijuana Business Expo, Cannabis Business Expo, sponsored by the Marijuana Investor Summit. And so we started it as kind of a pitch event. It started on 4/20, April 20th, appropriately enough, in Colorado. In 2015, we had about a little over 1,000 people in a pitch room and about 60 exhibitors. The pitch room was led by Kevin Harrington, who was one of the original sharks on Shark Tank.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we taught people not only about what was legal in the business, to be careful that you're investing in legal businesses, but also, because of my background and the people that we were with, how to invest in a good business, what to do, how to do your diligence, what kind of deal terms. And we've just spread that across so that we're very, very well known for bringing a different quality of content. We're not teaching people how to be bud tenders or, things like that. We actually, I think 40% of the people that attended our show in San Francisco last year were listed as accredited investors out of over 1,700 people. Now, many of those are operators and have made their money and become an accredited investor through their cannabis business and doing legal cannabis businesses.
So you really have to do your homework.
Yeah, we do our homework and we help them do their homework, and we help lead some investments. We help syndicate deals. So we've gone from 1,000 people in Denver that were paid and maybe 1,200 people total, 1,300 people, to San Francisco last spring. We just finished in San Diego, and we'll be running shows twice a year, one in Northern California, one in Southern California. So our next show will be in San Jose, in the Silicon Valley. So it'll be interesting to see the types of investors that come out there, because you're seeing more and more professional investors now starting to get into the industry, whether they're angel investors, private equity groups, family offices, members of VC firms. Peter Thiel, who one of his big claims to fame is he was one of the original investors in Facebook when they went out to the Silicon Valley, if you saw the movie. He actually is invested in a fund, privateer fund out of Los Angeles. So you're seeing funds getting started for large investors. So you'll see this industry growing the way other industries have, with more angel investors, more professional people in, more professional management, more networking. And we hope to be there to train it because, California, I think as a country would be the 10th largest country in the world, and it's 1/6 of the gross national product. So, we tend to focus on California because that will be, the California market will be larger than all of Canada, for example. It's a much bigger market, so.
Well, Randy, I love this interview, and I'm sure our listeners are excited about the type of picture you're painting here. How can people get in touch with you?
Best way is on LinkedIn. Connect to me at Randy Shipley, or you can just email me, randy@mjic.com. We run a LinkedIn group for people to be able to talk and openly talk about it. That's another difference you're seeing in the industry, just in social networking. 4 or 5 years ago, nobody would put they were in the cannabis business on their LinkedIn page or their Facebook page. And now we promote events, and you go to my page and it talks about it. And I told all my high school friends, what goes around comes around, and my business has now gone to pot. So, so you can find me on social networking very easily, or just email me, randy@mjic.com.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been our guest, Randy Shipley, president of the Marijuana International Corporation. For the Cannabis Innovators Show, I'm Michelle Holliday on PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. At Portfolio Wealth Global, we focus on the marijuana legalization process as a main investment theme. Today, I spoke with Randy Shipley, one of the top pioneer entrepreneurs that you will be hearing much about in the coming weeks, months, and years. If you're following the marijuana legalization worldwide phenomenon, you know that Canada has already announced that it will fully legalize cannabis by July 2018. This is major news, and as investors, we must be aware of the political nature of this industry. Any news which gives legitimacy to institutions to enter this sector is positive. The trend is now fully in place, and as Randy explained, there are so many amazing testimonies of what the active ingredients in marijuana can do for healing. They are popping up everywhere, and they are backed by scientific research. This industry is so diversified and offers tremendous employment opportunities, which will not and cannot be outsourced. On the investment side, at this time, Portfolio Wealth Global is closely monitoring 45 publicly traded companies, and we will be publishing a new stock suggestion. Our 2016 stock pick gained an unprecedented 1,700% as the elections came around and many states legalized. Coming up, we have amazing interviews with the co-founder of Madam Munchie, a medicinal marijuana company that is winning awards everywhere they go for their delicious edibles. The president of Apothecary Brands introduces the beautiful ways to not just store cannabis, but to keep it uncontaminated. And the CEO of Nature's Dream, which has developed the way for customers to easily choose from the hundreds of strains of cannabis based simply upon the effect which they desire. We have already produced a very cool interview with Warren Pulley, Senior Vice President of Project 7 Security Group, as the need for security expertise in the cannabis industry explodes. If your goal is to develop a cannabis career, use our show as a launching pad. You'll see what's cooking. You'll also be able to contact leaders who are looking for fresh, talented individuals and learn about under-the-radar companies to watch. Thanks for tuning in, and join us again next time for the Cannabis Innovators Show. Until then, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.